As the jury returned a partial guilty verdict in Sean Diddy Combs' high-profile sex trafficking and racketeering trial, the atmosphere in the Manhattan courtroom was thick with emotion. Found guilty on 2 of the 5 federal charges, specifically, for violations of the Mann Act related to transporting women across state lines for prostitution, Combs was spared convictions on the more severe charges of sex trafficking conspiracy and racketeering. The mixed verdict was a dramatic conclusion to weeks of intense legal proceedings that exposed disturbing allegations and brought a media storm around the music mogul and his family. The moment the jury foreperson read the verdict, all eyes turned not only to Combs but also to his family, who had been present throughout the trial. His mother, Janice Combs, a constant source of emotional support, sat in the front row of the gallery, clutching the hands of her grandchildren. Known for her fierce protection of her son, Janice reportedly held her breath as the verdict was read and burst into quiet tears when he was acquitted of the most serious charges. Her relief was visible, tempered only by the reality that her son was still facing time behind bars for the lesser but still serious convictions. Combs' children, including Christian, Justin, Chance, and his twin daughters Jessie and Lila, joined their grandmother in the courtroom and were visibly emotional. During the trial, they had all appeared at various points to lend support, with public displays of affection and unity. On social media, they had posted throwback photos and loving tributes to their father, portraying him as a caring and devoted dad despite the damning accusations. In court, when Combs turned to them after the verdict and shouted, "I'll be home soon. Love you," his children erupted into cheers and tears, echoing his sentiment with cries of "Dream Team. Dream Team." A reference to his legal defense. The split verdict left the courtroom in a state of complex emotion. For supporters of Combs, the not guilty verdicts on sex trafficking and racketeering were seen as major legal victories, potentially salvaging some of his legacy. For his accusers and critics, the 2 guilty verdicts were at least partial accountability, especially given the gravity of the stories told during the trial. Cassie Ventura, Combs' former longtime girlfriend, had taken the stand to recount a traumatic relationship riddled with emotional abuse, coercion, and disturbing sexual behavior. Other witnesses described freak-off parties, where women were allegedly manipulated into sex acts for Combs' gratification, often in exchange for money, drugs, or threats of retaliation. Despite the not guilty verdicts on the trafficking charges, the Mann Act violations still mark a legal and moral stain. These laws, originally enacted to combat sex trafficking across state lines, suggest that Combs did facilitate illegal sexual conduct, even if the prosecution failed to prove a broader trafficking conspiracy. The conviction on those counts could carry up to 20 years in prison, though first-time offenders often receive less. Still, the conviction ensures that Diddy's legal troubles are far from over. Back outside the courthouse, the Combs family appeared unified and composed. Janice Combs, though visibly emotional, offered a calm and almost stoic presence, waving gently to the media and shielding her grandchildren from the aggressive cameras. Christian Combs placed a protective arm around his grandmother while the twins, visibly shaken earlier in the week by the courtroom testimony, smiled faintly as they walked together toward a waiting SUV. The collective appearance was clearly orchestrated to signal strength, unity, and familial loyalty, a public front that has long been a part of Diddy's brand. The reaction on social media was immediate. Supporters of Combs praised the jury's decision to acquit on the most serious charges and shared footage of the family's celebratory mood. Critics, however, highlighted the convictions and the disturbing nature of the trial testimony, arguing that justice had only been partially served. The court of public opinion remained as divided as ever, especially as Diddy's name continued to be associated with a series of civil lawsuits and damaging media exposés. Behind the scenes, sources close to the family described the past year as one of unimaginable stress. Janice Combs, who raised Sean in Harlem after the murder of his father, is known for her resilience and no-nonsense attitude. Friends say she has been a rock for the family, insisting that no matter the outcome, they would get through it together. Several of Diddy's former partners, including Sarah Chapman and Dana Tran, mothers of some of his children, also appeared at the trial, reportedly putting aside personal grievances to support the family unit during this time. Legal experts note that although Diddy dodged the most damaging convictions, the upcoming sentencing for the Mann Act charges will be crucial. The prosecution may argue for the maximum sentence, using the breadth of evidence and testimony, much of which painted Combs in a negative and disturbing light, as justification. Meanwhile, the defense will likely point to the not guilty verdicts as proof that the jury did not believe there was a criminal enterprise, and that the conduct, while unlawful, did not merit the harshest punishment. In addition to the looming sentencing, Diddy faces ongoing civil litigation. Several of the women involved in the federal case are also plaintiffs in civil suits that could lead to large financial penalties and further tarnish his already damaged reputation. His business empire, once considered one of the most influential in the music industry, has suffered significant setbacks. Ciroc and other brand partnerships have been quietly terminated or paused, and Revolt TV, once seen as a bold move to empower black creators, is reportedly being restructured without Combs' involvement. Universities and institutions that once honored him have rescinded awards and titles in the wake of the allegations. Through all this turmoil, his family has stood by him. Whether out of genuine belief in his innocence, loyalty, or love, their presence in the courtroom was not for show. Observers noted that the family's prayers, hand-holding, and emotional reactions appeared deeply sincere. In a trial marked by graphic evidence and damning allegations, their visible grief, hope, and relief painted a human side to the story, one that was perhaps persuasive to jurors and certainly meaningful to Combs himself. As the legal saga continues, the Combs family will remain under public scrutiny. Whether Sean Combs will regain control of his career or serve significant time in prison is still uncertain. What is clear, however, is that his family, especially his mother Janice, will continue to be a focal point in the unfolding drama. Their presence through this ordeal has offered a glimpse into the deeply personal toll such trials take, beyond the headlines and courtroom drama. The next few months will determine not just Diddy's fate, but how his family navigates the next chapter, under the weight of fame, scandal, and unshakable familial loyalty.